Prelude. In a fractured moment beyond time, where fate hesitates and the gods fall
When the
silent,
dust of legend
two
finally
legends
settles,
are drawn
the
toward an
question
inevitable
remains
collision.
unresolved.
Not by
Not because
prophecy,
it lacks an answer.
nor by divine command, but by the raw gravity of their own existence. Hercules and Achilles stand on opposite ends of the battlefield, each embodying a different vision of immortality. Hercules is not protected by divine invulnerability. His body bleeds, his bones break, and pain is his constant companion. Yet what sets him apart is a strength that defies mortal limits, a power forged through suffering, punishment, and relentless trials imposed by the gods themselves. Every scar upon his body is a testament to endurance, to a will that refuses to bow even when crushed by fate. Achilles, by contrast, is the chosen warrior of destiny. Blessed by the waters of the river Styx, his body is nearly untouchable, immune to blade and spear. He moves across the battlefield like a living myth, swift, precise, and terrifyingly flawless. Victory follows him as naturally as breath, and death seems to recoil from his presence. This imagined encounter is more than a clash of warriors. It is a confrontation between two philosophies of power. Is true immortality granted by divine protection, or is it earned through unyielding resolve? As the earth trembles beneath their steps and the heavens hold their breath, the question echoes across time. Who is truly immortal? The one who cannot be harmed, or the one who refuses to fall? In that silence, before the first blow is struck, the answer remains uncertain, and that uncertainty is where legend is born. Part 1. Hercules, the immortality of will and overwhelming strength. Hercules was never meant to be untouchable. Unlike many heroes blessed by divine protection or enchanted flesh, Hercules entered the world burdened rather than shielded by his connection to the gods. Born of Zeus, yet raised among mortals, his life was not defined by privilege, but by punishment. From the very beginning, pain was woven into his destiny, not as a weakness, but as a crucible. Where other heroes were preserved, Hercules was tested. Where others were spared, he was broken, rebuilt, and broken again. To understand Hercules is to abandon the idea that immortality requires invincibility. His legend argues something far more unsettling, that true immortality may emerge not from divine favor, but from the refusal to surrender when everything conspires to destroy you. A mortal body under divine weight. Hercules bleeds. He tires. His bones crack beneath impossible strain. In battle, his body does not repel weapons as Achilles does. Instead, it absorbs punishment through sheer resilience. Every wound he sustains is real, every ache persistent. And yet he advances. This is the first paradox of Hercules. His body is mortal, but his endurance is not. In myth, and in the expanded, imagined confrontation with Achilles, this distinction becomes crucial. Hercules does not fight as a flawless weapon. He fights as a force of attrition. He survives what should kill him. He endures what should shatter any lesser being. Over time, pain ceases to be an obstacle and becomes a familiar companion, almost an ally. It sharpens his resolve rather than dulling it. Where Achilles avoids injury by divine design, Hercules earns survival through suffering. Strength beyond measurement. Hercules' strength is often described in simplistic terms as raw power, brute force, and overwhelming physical presence. But this interpretation barely scratches the surface. His strength is not merely about lifting mountains or crushing monsters. It is about exceeding the boundaries imposed by nature, fate, and even the gods. Each of the 12 labors was not a test of muscle alone, but of psychological endurance. Slaying the Nemean lion required not only power, but the willingness to face a creature immune to weapons. Capturing Cerberus demanded confrontation with death itself. Cleaning the Augean stables was not glorious, yet it tested humility and ingenuity. By the time Hercules emerges from these trials, his strength has evolved beyond the physical. It becomes symbolic, a manifestation of an indomitable will. When he strikes, It is not just force that follows his blow, but accumulated defiance against a universe that repeatedly sought to humble him. In a hypothetical battle against Achilles, this matters profoundly. Hercules does not need to strike the perfect blow. He does not need speed to rival lightning. His power lies in inevitability. Each impact carries weight, not only of muscle, but of history, rage, and relentless momentum. The psychology of an unbreakable warrior. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of Hercules is his mind. He is not fearless. He knows pain intimately. He understands loss, regret, and guilt, particularly the madness inflicted upon him that led to the deaths of his own family. Unlike Achilles, whose rage is often focused outward, Hercules' greatest battles are internal. This internal struggle forges a unique psychological weapon, resilience rooted in self-awareness. Hercules does not fight to prove perfection. He fights to atone, to endure, to persist. This grants him an almost terrifying mental endurance. In prolonged conflict, where fatigue erodes confidence and certainty, Hercules grows more dangerous rather than less. Pain reminds him that he is still standing. Each moment of survival reinforces his identity as someone who cannot be erased easily. Against Achilles, who is accustomed to swift, decisive victories, this mindset becomes disruptive. Hercules does not collapse when struck. He does not retreat in fear of injury. Instead, he absorbs the blow, rises again, and advances. In that moment, Achilles is forced to confront something unfamiliar, a foe who does not react as expected. Endurance as a weapon. In traditional warfare, speed and precision are celebrated. Achilles embodies both. But endurance is a subtler weapon, one that grinds opponents down over time. Hercules thrives in prolonged conflict. His strength allows him to sustain combat beyond normal limits, while his tolerance for pain prevents fatigue from becoming panic. Each exchange becomes less about who strikes faster and more about who remains standing when exhaustion sets in. In imagined retellings of the duel between Hercules and Achilles, this dynamic often shifts the battlefield itself. Dust settles slowly. The ground bears the marks of repeated impact. Time stretches. The gods watch, uneasy, as the contest refuses to resolve itself quickly. Hercules' presence transforms battle into a test of survival rather than skill. He forces the fight to continue, denying Achilles the clean, decisive ending he prefers. And in doing so, Hercules introduces doubt, the breaking point of invincibility. Achilles' near invulnerability is both his greatest advantage and his hidden weakness. Because he expects victory, he rarely prepares for stalemate. Because he believes himself untouchable, prolonged resistance unsettles him. Hercules exploits this, not through cunning traps or divine tricks, but through sheer persistence. He stands where others would fall. He advances where logic dictates retreat. Over time, the realization dawns that invincibility does not guarantee dominance. Hercules does not need to wound Achilles to challenge him. He needs only to refuse defeat. In some fictional interpretations, it is said that Hercules' blows, though unable to pierce Achilles' protected flesh, shake him to his core, rattling bone, breath, and confidence alike. The battle becomes less about killing and more about endurance, less about perfection and more about survival. In this sense, Hercules redefines the battlefield itself, a different kind of immortality. Hercules' immortality is not granted at birth, is forged. Even before his apotheosis, his eventual ascension to godhood, Hercules exists in a state of symbolic immortality. His name survives not because he was flawless, but because he endured what should have destroyed him. His legend is rooted in struggle rather than superiority. This stands in stark contrast to Achilles, whose fame is intertwined with divine protection and tragic inevitability. Achilles shines brightly, but briefly. Hercules burns longer, steadier, fueled by hardship. If immortality is measured by legacy rather than lifespan, Hercules' claim is formidable. He represents the idea that survival itself can be heroic, that standing back up is as meaningful as striking the final blow. The threat Hercules poses to the gods. In many myths, and especially in expanded, fictionalized narratives, the gods grow uneasy around Hercules. Not because he defies them openly, but because he proves something dangerous, that a mortal, through endurance and strength alone, can rival the constructs of divine power. Achilles is a product of divine intervention. Hercules is a consequence of divine cruelty. This distinction matters. Hercules' existence challenges the hierarchy of gods and mortals. If suffering can create strength that rivals divine blessings, then the gods are no longer absolute arbiters of power. In a duel with Achilles, this tension becomes visible. Achilles represents fate as written. Hercules represents fate resisted. Conclusion of Part 1. Hercules is not immortal because he cannot be harmed. He is immortal because harm does not stop him. His strength is not merely physical. It is cumulative, built from loss, pain, endurance, and defiance. Against an opponent like Achilles, Hercules does not offer a quick victory or a clean narrative. He offers resistance. He offers uncertainty. And in a world governed by prophecy and divine will, nothing is more dangerous than a hero who refuses to fall. Part 2. Achilles, the warrior sheltered by fate. Achilles was never meant to endure. He was meant to blaze. From the moment of his birth, Achilles stood apart from mortals not because of what he would become through struggle, but because of what destiny had already decided for him. Where Hercules was shaped by suffering, Achilles was shaped by prophecy. His life unfolded not as a test, but as a revelation, a living confirmation that fate, once spoken, could not be undone. To understand Achilles is to confront a deeper truth of mythological storytelling. Some heroes are forged by hardship, while others are chosen by destiny. Achilles belongs irrevocably to the latter. Born into prophecy, not possibility. Before Achilles ever lifted a spear, his future had already been written. His mother, Thetis, a sea nymph with knowledge of fate, was told that her son would face two possible destinies: a long, unremarkable life devoid of glory, or a brief existence crowned with eternal fame. Achilles would not merely fight in war, he would define it. His name would echo long after his body returned to dust. This prophecy did not grant Achilles peace. It imposed inevitability. Unlike Hercules, who fights against circumstances, Achilles fights within them. His choices exist within a narrow corridor defined by fate. Every step he takes leads him closer to Troy, closer to glory, and closer to death. And Achilles knows this. This awareness shapes him profoundly. He does not seek survival. He seeks meaning. He does not fight to overcome adversity. He fights to fulfill destiny. The gift of near-invulnerability. Achilles' most famous attribute, his near-invulnerable body, is not merely a physical advantage. It is a symbolic barrier between him and ordinary humanity. When Thetis dipped him into the river Styx, she did more than protect his flesh. She separated him from vulnerability itself. Blades glance off his skin. Spears fail to bite. Pain becomes an abstraction rather than a threat. In battle, Achilles moves with terrifying certainty. He does not hesitate. He does not retreat instinctively. His confidence is not arrogance. It is the natural consequence of knowing that the world cannot easily harm him. Yet this gift carries a hidden cost. By removing fear of injury, fate strips Achilles of one of humanity's greatest teachers, caution. Where Hercules learns through pain, Achilles learns through victory. And victory teaches far less than suffering ever could: speed, precision, and divine violence. Achilles does not fight like a man testing his limits. He fights like fate incarnate. His movements are swift beyond mortal comparison. His strikes are precise, lethal, and merciless. There is no excess motion, no wasted effort. Every blow is calculated to end a life, not prolong a struggle. This efficiency sets him apart from Hercules in profound ways. Hercules overwhelms. Achilles annihilates. In imagined confrontations between Achilles and Hercules, this contrast defines the early moments of battle. Achilles dominates the tempo. He dictates distance. He strikes, withdraws, and strikes again with surgical precision. To observers, mortal or divine, it appears inevitable that Achilles should prevail. But inevitability, when unchallenged, becomes fragile. The psychological armor of destiny. Achilles' greatest strength is not his invulnerable skin, it is his certainty. He believes in fate not as a comforting myth, but as an unalterable truth. This belief grants him extraordinary resolve. He does not fear death because he knows how and when it will come. Until that moment arrives, he considers himself untouchable. This mindset makes Achilles terrifying in battle. He charges where others hesitate. He stands where others flee. He confronts monsters, armies, and heroes alike with the calm confidence of someone who believes the universe bends around him. However, this certainty also narrows his perception. Achilles does not adapt well to the unexpected. He excels when the narrative aligns with prophecy, but struggles when confronted with resistance that does not fit the script. The subtle fragility of perfection. Perfection is brittle. Achilles' combat philosophy is built on the expectation of resolution. He is accustomed to decisive victories. Prolonged struggle unsettles him, not because he lacks endurance, but because endurance contradicts his understanding of fate. In fictionalized versions of his duel with Hercules, this tension becomes evident. Achilles strikes true again and again, yet his opponent does not fall. The battle stretches beyond expectation. Time intrudes, and with time comes doubt. Not fear, but confusion. Achilles begins to question not his strength, but the framework that has always governed his victories. If Hercules does not fall, then what does destiny demand next? The heel, symbol and reality. The heel of Achilles is often misunderstood as a simple weakness. In truth, it is a philosophical contradiction. Achilles is not flawed because he has a vulnerable point. He is flawed because he believes himself complete. The heel represents the inescapable truth that no destiny is absolute. No protection is perfect. Fate, for all its authority, leaves gaps. In a confrontation with Hercules, this symbolism becomes especially potent. Hercules does not seek the heel. He does not rely on secret knowledge or divine trickery. His threat lies elsewhere, in challenging the assumption that Achilles' invulnerability guarantees dominance. The heel matters, but only because Achilles believes it does not. Achilles versus resistance. Achilles excels at conquest, not endurance. He is the storm that devastates fields, not the mountain that survives erosion. His power is immediate, overwhelming, and dazzling, but not infinite. Against Hercules, Achilles confronts resistance in its purest form. Not evasion, not trickery, resistance. Each moment the battle continues contradicts Achilles' expectations. Each time Hercules rises, Achilles is forced to reconcile reality with prophecy. And prophecy, for the first time, begins to feel incomplete. The burden of glory. Achilles' ultimate motivation is not victory, it is remembrance. He fights to be remembered, to burn brightly enough that time itself cannot erase him. This pursuit shapes every decision he makes. It drives his rage, his pride, and his defiance. But glory demands sacrifice. To achieve immortality of legend, Achilles must accept mortality of flesh. He knows this. He embraces it. In contrast to Hercules, whose immortality emerges gradually through endurance, Achilles' immortality is transactional. It requires an ending. This difference matters deeply in their imagined duel. Hercules fights to continue. Achilles fights to conclude. Fate as a shield and a cage. Fate protects Achilles, but it also confines him. He cannot choose obscurity. He cannot escape Troy. He cannot abandon glory without betraying himself. His invulnerability becomes both armor and prison. In the presence of Hercules, a hero defined by choice rather than destiny, this confinement becomes apparent. Hercules adapts. Achilles fulfills. This distinction does not make Achilles weaker, but it makes him predictable. The gods' favorite weapon. Achilles is beloved by the gods not because he defies them, but because he confirms their authority. He proves that destiny works, that prophecy matters, that divine foresight cannot be escaped. Hercules unsettles the gods. Achilles reassures them. And yet, in a prolonged confrontation between the two, even the gods grow uneasy. For if Achilles struggles, if destiny hesitates, then perhaps fate is not as absolute as they believed. Conclusion of Part 2. Achilles is not merely a warrior. He is destiny made flesh. Sheltered by fate, protected by prophecy, and driven by the pursuit of eternal glory, he represents a form of immortality that burns intensely but briefly. His power lies in certainty, his weakness in rigidity. Against Hercules, Achilles does not face a stronger opponent. He faces a different philosophy of existence. And in that confrontation, the question deepens. Is immortality something granted by fate, or something forged by endurance? Part 3. The clash of two concepts of immortality. When Hercules and Achilles finally stand face to face, the battlefield itself becomes secondary. This is not merely a confrontation between two warriors, nor even between two legends. It is a collision between two fundamentally different interpretations of immortality, two answers to a question humanity has asked since the dawn of myth. What does it truly mean to be immortal? The gods watch in silence, not because they are indifferent, but because for the first time, they are uncertain. This is not a battle they can easily predict. Fate hesitates. Prophecy grows quiet. The earth itself seems to hold its breath. For in this moment, immortality is no longer a divine gift. It is on trial. Two immortalities, two philosophies. Achilles stands as the embodiment of granted immortality. His invincibility is bestowed upon him before choice, before struggle, before identity. His near-perfect body is the result of divine intervention, a shield forged by fate itself. Achilles does not question whether he can be harmed. He assumes he cannot. His power flows from certainty. Hercules, by contrast, represents forged immortality. His endurance is earned through suffering, his strength accumulated through loss and relentless trial. He is not protected from pain, he is defined by it. His survival is not guaranteed by prophecy, but by refusal. Where Achilles trusts fate, Hercules challenges it. This distinction shapes every movement of the battle. Achilles advances with precision, confidence, and inevitability. Hercules advances with weight, persistence, and defiance. One seeks resolution. The other seeks continuation. The opening exchange, illusion of dominance. In the first moments of their clash, Achilles appears dominant. His speed overwhelms the senses. His strikes arrive faster than thought, blades flashing like fragments of destiny itself. To mortal eyes, and even to some gods, the outcome seems obvious. Hercules is struck again and again, driven backward by the sheer efficiency of Achilles' assault. But Hercules does not fall. He staggers. He bleeds. He absorbs the punishment in silence. Each impact resonates through his body, yet instead of retreating, he steadies himself. He plants his feet. He endures. And slowly, subtly, the illusion fractures. Achilles has fought countless enemies, but none who respond like this. None who accept damage as the price of persistence. None who refuse to yield to inevitability. For the first time, Achilles realizes that dominance does not guarantee conclusion. Time, the enemy of invincibility. As the battle stretches onward, time itself becomes a weapon. Achilles is built for decisive moments, swift engagements, clean victories, heroic conclusions. His immortality assumes efficiency. The longer the conflict endures, the more it strays from the narrative fate has written for him. Hercules thrives in this uncertainty. Each passing moment favors endurance over perfection. Pain becomes familiar. Fatigue becomes manageable. Hercules' strength does not diminish, it compounds. He learns Achilles' rhythm, adapts to his speed, and anticipates patterns once thought unreadable. The battle evolves from spectacle to attrition. Achilles begins to feel something unfamiliar, not weakness but strain, not fear but disruption. His invulnerability remains intact, yet his certainty erodes. For what is invincibility worth if it cannot end the fight? Hercules, battered and bloodied, still advances. This inversion becomes the central irony of the duel. The invincible warrior grows strained, while the vulnerable one grows stronger. Immortality, it seems, is not measured by what cannot be harmed, but by what refuses to stop. The moment of realization. There comes a moment, quiet, devastating, when Achilles understands a truth. Even if he wins, he may not dominate. Even if Hercules falls, he will not be erased. Hercules' immortality does not depend on survival. It depends on defiance, on having stood against destiny itself and refused to kneel. Achilles' immortality, by contrast, requires conclusion. It requires an ending that validates prophecy. And in that realization, Achilles faces the one thing fate never prepared him for: ambiguity. No finalblo. In many retellings, especially those that embrace mythic ambiguity, the battle does not end with a decisive strike. There is no triumphant execution, no clear victor. Instead, there is exhaustion, recognition, and an unspoken understanding between the two warriors. Achilles realizes that invincibility cannot force submission. Hercules realizes that endurance alone cannot conquer fate. They are equals not in strength, but in significance. The gods do not intervene, not because they cannot, but because to do so would diminish both forms of immortality. Some battles must remain unresolved to preserve their meaning. Legacy beyond victory. Long after the battlefield is abandoned, the story spreads. Mortals debate who would have won. Poets argue. Philosophers analyze. Warriors choose sides. But the legend persists not because of resolution, but because of contrast. Achilles becomes the symbol of destiny fulfilled, glory achieved, perfection realized at great cost. Hercules becomes the symbol of endurance, resilience, and the defiance of imposed limits. Both are immortal, but in profoundly different ways. The final question. In the end, the clash between Hercules and Achilles leaves humanity with a question more powerful than any verdict. Is immortality something bestowed by fate, or something earned through resistance? Achilles proves that destiny can elevate a man beyond mortality. Hercules proves that will can challenge destiny itself. And perhaps true immortality lies not in choosing one, but in understanding the tension between them. Conclusion of Part 3. The battle between Hercules and Achilles is not about who stands victorious. It is about what survives. Fate, will, perfection, endurance. In their clash, immortality is stripped of simplicity and revealed as something far more complex, something shaped as much by suffering as by prophecy. And so the legends endure, not because one hero defeated the other, but because neither could be erased. Conclusion. Who is truly immortal? When the dust of legend finally settles, the question remains unresolved, not because it lacks an answer, but because it reveals more than one truth. Achilles embodies immortality granted by fate. His near-invulnerable body, forged by divine design, allows him to stand above ordinary mortality. He represents the brilliance of destiny fulfilled, the kind of glory that burns intensely and forever in the collective memory of humanity. Yet his immortality is conditional. It depends on prophecy, on precision, on a single flawless narrative that must reach its destined end. Hercules, by contrast, embodies immortality forged through endurance. He bleeds, he suffers, and he falters, but he continues. His legacy is not built on perfection, but on persistence. Where Achilles cannot be touched, Hercules cannot be broken. His immortality lives not in the body, but but in the refusal to surrender, even when defeat seems inevitable. So who is truly immortal? If immortality means to remain untouched, then Achilles stands supreme. But if immortality means to endure beyond pain, beyond fear, and beyond imposed fate, then Hercules holds a power far more enduring. In the end, myths remember both, but for different reasons. Achilles reminds us of what destiny can grant. Hercules reminds us of what the human spirit can achieve. And perhaps the truest immortality lies not in choosing between them, but in recognizing that humanity needs both ideals, the brilliance of fate and the courage to resist it. For legends do not live forever because they are perfect. They live forever because they still speak to us. Prelude, the lightning of power and desire. At the summit of Mount Olympus, where clouds bow and thunder kneels, one name reigns above all others, Zeus. To mortals, he is the architect of order, the guardian of cosmic law, the hand that strikes down chaos with divine lightning. Yet behind every brilliant flash of thunder lies a darker echo, a whisper of longing, temptation, and unrestrained desire. Zeus is not merely a god of the sky. He is a god of wanting. His power stretches across heaven and earth, but his heart is restless, always searching for the next forbidden flame. Each storm he unleashes seems to mirror an inner turmoil, as if the sky itself trembles under the weight of his passions. Legends speak of Zeus descending from Olympus in countless forms, a golden rain, a gentle swan, a wandering stranger, all disguises worn in pursuit of love that was never meant to be his. In those moments, divine authority becomes seduction, and supreme power transforms into temptation. Thus, Zeus stands as both ruler and prisoner, the master of all creation, yet enslaved by his own desires. His lightning does not only illuminate the sky, it reveals the eternal conflict between power and passion burning within the king of the gods. Part 1. Zeus, the supreme god and the hunger for power. The birth of a tyrant slayer. Before Zeus was the ruler of Olympus, before thunder answered to his will, he was a hunted child. Cronus, king of the Titans, had learned of a prophecy. One of his own children would overthrow him. In fear, he devoured each newborn as soon as it left Rhea's womb. Gods who would have ruled the cosmos were swallowed into darkness, trapped in their father's living prison. Zeus alone escaped. Rhea hid the infant in a cave on Crete, and tricked Cronus into swallowing a stone instead. There, nurtured by nymphs and guarded by the Curetes who clashed their shields to drown out his cries, Zeus grew not just in strength, but in resentment. He learned early that power is the only shield against annihilation. This childhood shaped him forever. Zeus did not grow up learning love. He grew up learning survival. And survival, for a god destined to rule, meant one thing: dominance, overthrowing the old world. When Zeus reached maturity, he did not return to his father seeking peace. He returned with poison and vengeance. With the help of Metis, Zeus forced Cronus to vomit up his swallowed children: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, resurrecting a generation of gods who had never known freedom. Together, they waged a war that tore the universe apart, the Titanomachy. For 10 years, Titans and Olympians clashed. Mountains were hurled like weapons. Oceans boiled. The sky cracked open. And Zeus stood at the center of it all. It was Zeus who freed the Cyclopes and the Cinemanes, monstrous beings imprisoned by Cronus. In gratitude, the Cyclopes forged Zeus his greatest weapon, the Thunderbolt, a divine force capable of splitting worlds. With it, Zeus did not merely defeat the Titans. He erased them. Cronus was cast into Tartarus, locked away in eternal darkness. The old order was destroyed, and Zeus emerged not just as a victor, but as the sole undisputed authority of the cosmos. Yet even in triumph, something dangerous was born. A god who learns that violence brings order may never stop using violence to maintain it. The crown of Olympus. After the war, Zeus divided the universe with his brothers. Poseidon received the seas. Hades took the underworld. Zeus claimed the sky, and with it dominion over all. From Mount Olympus, Zeus ruled not merely as a king, but as a living embodiment of law. Oaths were sworn in his name. Justice flowed from his judgment. Even the other gods trembled at his thunder. But power gained through conquest is never fully secure. Zeus understood this. His reign was haunted by the same fear that had consumed Cronus, the fear of being overthrown. He had destroyed a tyrant, yet he knew in his bones how easily a ruler could become one. So Zeus did what insecure rulers always do. He sought total control, not only over the heavens, but over fate, loyalty, and even desire, power and possession. To Zeus, love was never separate from power. Every goddess he seduced, every mortal woman he touched, was not merely an object of affection. She was a symbol of conquest. Each affair expanded his influence, creating bloodlines tied directly to him, spreading his essence across the world. In a sense, Zeus was building an empire of flesh and blood. Heroes like Hercules, Perseus, and Minos were not accidents. They were living monuments to Zeus's reach, proof that no kingdom, no lineage, no womb was beyond his grasp. This was not romance. This was imperialism, the psychology of a god who must own everything. Why did Zeus need so many lovers? The myths offer a chilling answer. Because he could. A being who controls lightning, fate, and law exists beyond refusal. When Zeus desired, the world bent. Yet beneath this arrogance lay a deeper terror. Zeus was afraid of losing control. He remembered the darkness of Cronus's belly. He remembered helplessness. So he compensated with excess. If everything belonged to him, land, sky, gods, women, then he would never again be powerless. Thus, his lust was not weakness. It was strategy, the illusion of divine right. Olympus worshipped Zeus as a protector, but protection and domination are easily confused. Zeus punished those who defied him. Zeus rewarded those who pleased him. Zeus decided what was just, and justice always favored Zeus. Over time, law became indistinguishable from his will, and that is the most dangerous form of power. When authority believes, it is morality. The storm within. The sky above Olympus is never truly calm. Clouds gather, thunder rolls, lightning flashes. In ancient stories, and in the darker legends whispered by nymphs and forgotten goddesses, the storms were said to mirror Zeus's inner state. Each affair, each betrayal of Hera, each stolen moment of pleasure stirred the heavens. Zeus was not at peace. He ruled everything, yet mastered nothing inside himself. The seed of corruption. Thus, the tragedy of Zeus begins not with lust, but with fear. Fear of being overthrown. Fear of being unloved. Fear of being powerless. And so he chose to be everything else. Supreme. Feared. Desired. Even if it meant turning the world into his personal domain. Conclusion of Part 1. Zeus did not become the ruler of gods because he was the most just. He became ruler because he was the most relentless. And once he had everything, he could not stop wanting more. For a god who once knew helplessness, power was never enough. It had to be absolute. Part 2. The hidden affairs and the wounds they left behind. Whispers beneath Olympus. Olympus was built of marble and gold, but its foundations were laid upon secrets. For every hymn sung to Zeus, there was a woman somewhere crying his name in silence. For every statue raised in his honor, there was a life quietly shattered by his touch. The gods called him father. The poets called him king. But many women, mortal and divine, knew him by another name, the storm that passed through their lives and never stayed. His affairs were never meant to be seen. They existed in shadows, hidden behind clouds, behind divine disguises, behind fear. And yet, their consequences were impossible to hide. The art of divine deception. Zeus did not seduce as mortals do. He conquered through illusion. When he desired someone, he rarely appeared as himself. Instead, he became what she trusted. To Leda, he was a wounded swan. To Danae, he was golden rain. To Europa, a gentle white bull. To Alcmene, the very image of her husband. These were not romantic gestures. They were acts of manipulation. By wearing forms that disarmed, Zeus removed the possibility of refusal. How could a woman reject a helpless creature, a sacred sign, a loving spouse? This was seduction without consent, divine power dressed as affection. Io, the girl who became a prisoner. Io was a priestess of Hera, sworn to purity. Zeus saw her, and desire struck him like lightning. To hide his affair, Zeus wrapped the world in clouds and took her. When Hera grew suspicious, Zeus transformed Io into a white heifer. He did not free her. He hid her. Io wandered the earth in animal form, hunted by Hera's jealousy, tormented by a gadfly sent to drive her mad. She crossed oceans, deserts, and mountains, unable to speak, unable to beg for mercy. Zeus watched, the king of gods, who could command heaven itself. Let the girl he claimed to love suffer for years. Love, when mixed with cowardice, becomes cruelty. Semele, the woman who died for wanting the truth. Semele was a mortal princess who loved Zeus without knowing his true nature. Hera, cruel and clever, whispered doubt into her heart. If he truly loves you, ask him to show himself. Bound by a divine oath, Zeus could not refuse. When he appeared in his full, godly form, blazing, radiant, terrible, Semele was consumed by fire. She died not because Zeus hated her. She died because Zeus loved himself more. Leda and the swan. Leda never knew she was being hunted by a god. She thought she was saving a frightened creature. Zeus chose the shape of a swan because it symbolized innocence. He wrapped his divinity in feathers and fragility. From that night came Helen, whose beauty would one day ignite the Trojan War. A single act of Zeus's desire would cost thousands of lives. The forgotten mothers. For every famous child of Zeus, there was a forgotten mother. Women who raised divine sons alone. Women who were blamed, exiled, or destroyed. Women whose only crime was being seen. The myths remember Hercules. They forget Alcmene's tears. Hera, queen of betrayal. Hera is often painted as cruel, but she was also a woman repeatedly humiliated by a husband who could not be faithful. Zeus did not just betray Hera, he made a spectacle of it. And so Hera struck back, not at Zeus, but at his lovers and their children. A tragic cycle of victim punishing victim, while the true offender remained untouchable. The empire of illegitimate gods. Zeus's children were everywhere. Kings, heroes, monsters, warriors. Each one was a reminder that Zeus had been there. Olympus became less a family and more a web of unresolved trauma. Conclusion of Part 2. Zeus did not simply love too much. He left too much behind. Broken women, fatherless children, a sky heavy with unspoken grief. And Olympus, for all its splendor, was built upon the tears of those who were never allowed to say no. Part 3. Womanizer or abuser of divine power. The question Olympus never dared to ask. In every myth about Zeus, there is one silence louder than all the thunder. No one ever asked whether the women had a choice. Poets spoke of seduction. Priests spoke of divine romance. Statues showed willing embraces. But in the shadows of Olympus, another truth lingered. How does one refuse a god? When a being controls storms, fate, and punishment itself, consent becomes a fragile illusion. Zeus did not need to threaten. His power was threat enough. The power imbalance of the divine. A mortal woman lived in a world where gods decided harvests, plagues, births, and deaths. If Zeus desired her, what were her options? Say yes, and be marked forever. Say no, and risk divine wrath. Even if Zeus never spoke a threat, the imbalance was absolute. That is not courtship. That is coercion wearing the mask of love. The language of myths. Ancient myths often describe Zeus's affairs using gentle words. He lay with her, he wooed her, he took her. But in the original Greek, many of these phrases also mean he seized. The language itself betrays the truth. These were not equal encounters. They were acts of domination. when desire becomes law. Zeus was not only the king of gods, he was the embodiment of justice. This meant that when Zeus wanted something, it was by definition justified. There was no higher court, no appeal, no divine restraining order. His desire became law, and that is the darkest form of tyranny, when lust disguises itself as righteousness. The victims without voices. Io, Europa, Simile, Liada, Alcmene. The myths tell us what happened to them. They do not tell us how they felt. Their fear, their confusion, their grief. Those emotions were erased by centuries of storytelling that glorified Zeus and silenced everyone else. History was written by the thunderbolt. Hera's tragedy revisited. Hera is remembered as jealous. But imagine being eternally bound to a man who cannot stop betraying you, a man you cannot leave, cannot punish, cannot escape. Hera's cruelty was not born from malice. It was born from powerlessness. Zeus and the pattern of predators. Zeus's behavior followed a pattern. He noticed a woman. He desired her. He altered reality to reach her. He moved on. That is not romance. That is predation. Why Zeus was never stopped. No one could challenge him. Not the gods. Not the titans. Not fate itself. Power protected him. It always does. The modern mirror. We still tell stories about Zeus. We still romanticize powerful men who take what they want. The myths have not changed. Only the names have. Conclusion of Part 3. So is Zeus a womanizer? Or something far darker? When desire is backed by omnipotence, it ceases to be desire. It becomes a weapon. And Zeus, the king of gods, wielded it with devastating force. Conclusion. The supreme god, or the symbol of endless desire. Zeus will forever stand as the ruler of Olympus, the god whose lightning shaped the heavens and whose will define the order of the cosmos. To the world, he is remembered as the champion who defeated the Titans and brought stability to a broken universe. Yet behind that towering image lies a far more unsettling truth. For Zeus did not only rule the skies, he ruled over hearts, bodies, and destinies. His countless lovers and secret affairs were not merely stories of passion, but reflections of a god who could never be satisfied. With unlimited power came unlimited entitlement, and with it, a hunger that no conquest could ever quiet. Every new romance was less about love and more about control, a reminder that even the king of gods could not escape his own cravings. In the end, Zeus remains a paradox, the ultimate guardian of order and the ultimate embodiment of chaos within. He created law, yet lived above it. He punished excess, yet indulged in it endlessly. Perhaps that is the true tragedy of Zeus, a god who ruled everything in existence, yet never learned how to rule himself.